Hey, what's up, everyone? Dragon back again, here to tell you that you should be watching Netflix's Erased. So Erased, and I would make a point of saying Netflix Erased because this has been had a lot of different adaptation. It's based on a manga created by Kei Sanbei, and basically has been an anime, a light novel, a live action movie, and now a live action Netflix series. It's very similar to what Netflix has done with Dark, where it's a, a German production, but it's produced by Netflix. It's an original Netflix series. Basically, the same thing here. It's a Japanese production, but it's produced by Netflix. And like Dark, interestingly enough, it's kind of a similar story where you have a character, Satoru, who is our protagonist, who basically finds itself going back in time to the 80s, seeing a trend here, to 1988, to essentially undo a sequence of events that ultimately resulted, sorry, I'm still getting over my cough, ultimately resulted in the murder of his mother in 2006. So basically, there's been a series of kidnappings and child murders that started back in the 80s, and then you're seeing similar things happening in 2006 when his mother witnesses something that essentially gets her killed. Now, the interesting thing about Satoru is that he has this innate ability to essentially go back in time, what he calls revivals, or basically, and normally it's just short increments of time. We're talking like a few minutes. So, if he's driving on his bike down a road, or in this case his moped, because he's a pizza delivery guy, he'll pass through like an intersection and then have a revival and then find himself right back at the intersection he was just a couple minutes ago. But when he sees his mother die, the murder basically is meant to look like he did it. He's running from the cops, and it goes all the way back to 1988. And from that point on, he decides that he's going to save the people who were killed, the kids in his class who were killed, and hopefully to kind of offset this sequence of events. And maybe if he can kind of, throw off the killer in the past, it might prevent them from doing what they do in the future. He basically kind of be able to predict his moves. And but he's able to do this a few times. The first attempt, he's able to delay some killings, but doesn't always stop them. The second time around, he's able to stop some. And basically, he kind of does this a few times before ultimately having to face the killer in the future. So there is a weird science fiction element there, but it's less overt. When he's in the past, he's really in the past because he's in the body of his younger self. I think he's about 11 or 12 there. Not quite sure, but he's not a little kid. He's like in middle school basically. But he goes back into the body of his middle school self. So it's not like in Dark where they go through kind of the weird time portal and they walk out as themselves in the past, and in theory might even experience themselves in the past. No, it's more or less his consciousness is being transported to his past. So it's kind of like Days of Future Past, a little bit that kind of thing. So he has the memories of an adult, and he essentially has to kind of blend in with other kids his age and kind of work to kind of to save them. But each time he goes back and changes history, he still retains the memories that he had from the other timeline. So it's kind of interesting in the sense that he's remembering things that now no longer happen. Now, when we talked about Dark, one of the things we talked about was how, it's very presumptuous of us to kind of think that we hold sway over time. And anyway, that we think, okay, we're going to go back in time and change something, when in actuality, we're just playing our role, as I had said. That basically our future or our present is the way it is because time has already factored us having gone back in time. How things are now are the result of us having already done that. That was already part of the plan. It was like a circular thing so when we think, okay, my life is a certain way, so I'm going to travel back in time and change that. So when I come back to the future, or the present, my life is now this, only to find out, well, no, that's not how it's going to be. Your life is what it is because you did go back in time and you did what you did. Now, in this story, it's different. It's the opposite. You can have an effect on the past, and that's what he does. He is literally rewriting history every time he does that. Like he goes back to the present, it's not quite right, it's not quite what he needs it to be. He goes back again and keeps adjusting it till it results in basically what he's trying to achieve, at varying costs and expenses to himself. But in this scenario, we can have an effect on the past, but where it kind of restricts itself is that where in dark, in theory, anyone who walks through this cave and comes out the other side can travel through time. Only he has this ability. This isn't something that everyone can just do. It's not like they stumble on to the portal to the path. It's an ability he has. It's something he himself can do. So in theory, he is the only one who can do what's happening. So yes, he is able to affect history, change history, but only he can. So there are still some rules and restrictions. So as in dark, we can't change anything. Everything is as it is because of what we were going to do past, present, future, regardless of time travel. Here, you can change something, but it's not like any one of us just can. It's a special individual. So they do kind of have some rules in place to kind of, make this idea a bit more accessible, I feel, because otherwise it's like, well, people are just going to be going, back in time willy-nilly, just changing things, and you change something a certain way to make it the way you want, and then somebody else comes back in and changes it the way they want, because you still retain your memories. That's the thing. You still remember the previous timeline as it was, even though now it no longer exists. So it's not like you would be ignorant if someone changed something. No. If you went back in time, changed something, then came to the future and saw that it was now different in a different way, you would know that it was somebody else that did it. So it'd be this whole back and forth tug of war. So no, only Satoru was able to do this. And I think that definitely helps for the story, because otherwise they would just be, well, then why isn't everyone doing this? But what really took me with the story is how selfless he is. He is literally taking it upon himself to try to save lives. That's what he's doing, and he's doing so at great expense to himself. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but when you find out who the killer is, it's one of those things where it is kind of a personal blow to him, and what the price he pays for learning that truth. You realize just how selfless of a person he is, and the lives he was able to kind of save, and what cost to him he was able to do that. And that there are people who are aware. They don't realize he traveled back in time to do it, but they realize that their lives were saved because of his actions in the past. To them, it's just the young boy who's putting himself in harm's way to save people. That's how they see it, but that's what they see. So he's a very selfless character and a very likable character. So in a weird way, he's a superhero. He's got superpowers, but he's not, super strong. He doesn't wear a cape. He doesn't fly around. He's got this one ability that he's going to use to save people for no other reason to save them. And he basically wants, basically a chain of reaction, a sequence of events that led to a chain reaction that result in his mother being killed. And basically, he's going to undo that by causing a chain of reactions that are positive. Instead of people dying to lead to his mother's murder, he's going to save her by saving all these other people. So it's going to be a chain reaction of all these people who would have died that are now not going to die. That's going to kind of trickle up into the present, resulting in his mother not dying. So that's what he's doing. He is offsetting a negative chain of events with a positive one. So it's very interesting when you look at it that way. And it's an interesting way of how we affect history. It's creating a domino effect at one point and letting the pieces fall along the way. So it's a really smart show. I've not read the manga. I've not seen any of the other iterations of it. I didn't even know there was a live-action movie until I was doing a little research for this episode. I was like, wow, there's a live-action movie too. That came out in 2016 last year. So there's been a lot of iterations of this story. And when you at least watch the Netflix series, you can kind of see why. It's a very thought-provoking story, and it's a very compelling story. So not surprisingly, people in different mediums probably felt drawn to it and wanted to kind of tell that story in their medium of choice. So by all means, go and check out the other iterations of it. I will be doing so. But, the show was my kind of foray into this story. And again, it's continuing Netflix's kind of, joint venture with other countries. And again, I like how this is a Japanese story that takes place in Japan with Japanese people. And I like how it wasn't, and it shows you for people who are not familiar with Japanese life and society. It's kind of a cool look into just Japanese culture. It's one of the great things I love about watching stories that take place in other countries other than my own, is that I get to kind of experience a bit of that culture as well. Their sensibilities, their approach, even their approach to storytelling, which does differ from Western storytelling. So it is kind of cool to kind of experience maybe this kind of story in a different way. If Dark is in a weird way the Western kind of version of the story. I mean, it's a different story, but this kind of idea of, traveling from the present to the 80s, and having an effect on the future in one way or another. It's kind of cool to see how a different kind of mentality approaches this kind of narrative. So, if you guys already watched Dark, now definitely go check this out and kind of experience a little bit of the flip side to this kind of narrative. But anyway, Erased. Have you watched it? Have you seen any of the other iterations of it, whether it be the manga, light novel, anime, movie? Let me know if you did not. It's currently airing on Netflix. As always, when there is a home release of it, I'll put some links below. But I was thinking right now, I'll double check if there are Blu-ray DVDs. I'll put links in the description section below where you can go buy, check it out. If not, like I said, it's on Netflix. So most of you probably have Netflix, so it's there waiting for you. If you don't have Netflix, you should get Netflix. I'm not being paid or sponsored by Netflix, but I like Netflix. It's got Stranger Things, so watch Stranger Things if nothing else. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace!